you can teach people how to be a carpenter, but you can't teach people how to have a good work ethic or a good mindset.
How old are you going to be before you start to experience life like you want it? I want to tell you right now, whether you like it or not, there is a better way to do business. Hi everyone, welcome to the Business for Builders podcast. Welcome to you if you're in YouTube land. My name's Max. I'm the CEO at Smith & Sons Remodeling Experts. Have I got a treat for you today? In the studio, I am joined by Dan Booth, and he is a wild and crazy business owner from the East Coast. East Coast, would that be right? Yeah, that'll do. And you're in for a treat. So we are going to do our best to inform, educate, and most of all, entertain. So let's get on with it. Dan, welcome, mate. Great to have you along.
Thanks so much. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, no sweat. So, look, obviously what we want to do is we want to do a bunch of things for our audience. We want to be we want to be educative. We want to be informative. But most of all, we want to be entertaining, right? We want to get them giggling as they drive between jobs or whatever the case may be. But, what we really want to do, I mean, as I've sort of mentioned more often than not, is that the building game is dog eat dog, and it's pretty horrific, some of the outcomes. And, there's a lot of challenges personally as operators we go through. And so what we're trying to do here at Business for Builders, and I know you're obviously putting some stuff out there that certainly helps carpenters specifically, and of course some DIYers as well. But mate, so what we want to do is we want to dive into a bit of Dan's story. We want to know a bit about you, Dan. Like, where did it all start, and what got you into the building game, man? Let's go from there, and then we'll get really technical down the track. So, mate, how did you end up in the building game? What happened there?
Sounds good. Yeah. So first off, I realized at a young age that I really enjoyed working with other individuals. So I was big into sports. I liked the idea of the fact that people work together to achieve a common goal. So once I was out of high school, I really wanted to find something to kind of help fill that void once sports stopped. And I had already applied to carpentry to take a carpentry course at a local community college. I always liked doing things with my hands. I was pretty creative as a kid. So I liked building things. I actually built a skateboard half pipe in my parents' backyard when I think I was like 13 or 14. And that was kind of where it all started. But yeah, once I finished high school, I went straight to community college and just fell in love with it right away and wanted to learn more and more about it as much as I could. And that was 10 years ago now. So I've been doing it every day since. So.
Yeah. And you're doing some great stuff. It's really interesting. I mean, the challenge, I guess, for me to relocate from where I was in Australia to British Columbia, I found it amazing that you guys dig swimming pools under your houses. In the way I'd never seen a basement before. It was just a bizarre concept. I'm like, why would you do that? That shit fills up with water. Obviously coming from, a climate whereby we didn't have to worry about pipes freezing. Ironically enough, here's one of the funny observations. In Australia, like the minimum requirement depth for an electrical conduit to serve power to the house, let's say from the street underground, had to be 2 feet. Like, that was the minimum. But the water was literally, it wouldn't have been more than 12 inches. I mean, the water pipe, more often than not, the water pipe was laid in the same trench as the underground power. But that it was only 2 feet. Whereas here, like this morning I'm driving in and I was compelled, whilst I was stationary, to take a photo of the dash because it was just snowing out and it was white and it was minus 18 degrees, which is just ridiculous, dude. I'd never experienced under anything under zero. So, so the whole construction side of thing, I same as you, I was fascinated by the build process and how a frame went up and things like that. And then when I came out here, it was kind of, something very similar in the way there was a little bit of a learning curve as to, why you do what you do and then how you actually build those foundation walls. And that was a pretty new process. So what stuff you're working on currently? We were chatting offline a little bit about the new rules or code, or the new permitting side of things. Tell us about the projects you got in the go, Dan.
So we mainly focus on residential new construction, so new homes. I come from a renovation background, so I worked for another gentleman before I joined the company that I'm with now. So I did renovations for about 6 or 7 years with him, and then when I joined Niche, we decided to kind of go a different route. We were doing some renovations at the time, but once kind of COVID came around, going into strangers' homes became a bit of a challenge for people, and that was really when we made the shift into new construction. So right now we've got 2 new builds on the go. I was talking with you about one, which is an ADU, which is an accessory dwelling unit. And basically, where I live, they just passed a recent bylaw that allows you to build a secondary unit on your lot, so long as it meets the parameters and is less than 40% of the square footage of the existing house. Basically, I live just outside of a small town. It's a small university town, and there's not a whole lot of building lots available. However, the population continues to grow. So finding ways to increase the population density without, creating new lots has kind of been a bit of a challenge for the local municipality, but they've been doing a great job coming up with, I think, is a great option, especially where there's a lot of rental units in the area.
Yeah, it reminds me of back in Oz, we had a thing called Granny Flat, and it was motivated the same thing. It couldn't be any more than, I think, 90 square meters, which might have been 900 square feet or thereabouts. But it was because there was a lot of student accommodation. It wasn't, even though we called it a granny flat, it was actually made up of 2 bedrooms, and of course you basically had you had students inside of that, university students. So yeah, what else? What's the other one?
So we just broke ground on another new build, a little bit further away from where I live, but basically just a new construction, more a little more high end than some of our recent projects, and focused on energy efficiency. So a couple of different building details that will be happening in that one, as opposed to kind of traditional bare bones minimum code style building. So yeah, it should be an exciting build, and we're basically just poured the foundation, I believe yesterday or today. So I haven't personally set foot to start building on it, but it should be coming early in the new year.
So that's quite a variation in it, from that ADU style of building right to the other end, and that might be what, a 3,500-4,000 square foot home, and it's quite the opposite end of the scale. So and you obviously do everything in between that. Do you mind sharing the name of the company that you work with, or is that cool? Because it's an interesting name, and you brought this up. You made the comment off the back of one of my videos on TikTok, and it was to do with your company name, because I was pushing the fact that you've got to have this. So share with us. Tell me about, obviously, the company and how it's made up, and maybe talk about the crew and how you go about some of that recruitment and the challenges.
Sounds good. So the company is called Niche Design Consultants. So NICHE. I know some people pronounce it different ways. That's how I pronounce it. And basically, we're trying to cover all steps or all aspects of building construction. So we do in-house design and drafting. So we have a design expert who can take people through that process, find out what their wants and needs are, and try to get that on paper. We also have access to doing engineering. So if there's any things that need to be checked off before you start, we can also help you with that. And then we do general contracting and project management, and then we do most of the construction as well. So we don't do concrete work, or kind of some of the smaller bits and pieces like drywall or painting. But as far as framing and finish work, we do kind of all of that in-house. So trying to eliminate the need to deal with a bunch of different people as far as from the client standpoint is something that we try to focus on.
Do you guys like do you have a high turnover rate as far as the as far as labor's concerned, or have you got a pretty tight bunch and you don't actually need to go outside because you're good at recruiting? And if you are good at recruiting, share with the audience, what makes it so great? Like, what is it that you do maybe that really helps you recruit the right talent?
For sure, that's a great question. So we have had actually a really low turnover rate. Niche has been a business since 2015. And I believe we've only had 3 people leave us in that amount of time. And I think part of the reason is good recruiting. So to touch on that, I went to a local community college. That's where I took my program, and that's actually where I met one of my business partners, and that's how we developed that relationship. Um, I'd like to think that we have a pretty good relationship with our former teacher. So we've actually gone in and talked to the classes that are currently there, and just chatted with them about kind of what to expect when you get outside of school and into the workforce, showing that you can in fact stay here and make a good go at it. I know for me, living on the east coast of Canada, a lot of younger people are moving out west in search of work, myself included. I moved to Edmonton in 2016, I believe, 2015 or 2016, for a little short period. And then I actually moved back home. So just having a chat with the students that are in the class, kind of just getting our foot in the door in their minds and in their eyes. And then also we do what's called a work placement. That's part of their schooling. So that's where we've actually recruited a lot of our people, is by going into the class, talking with them, and then they reach out to us to try to work for us for their work placement. And that's worked out really well. We've had two guys in the last 2 years that have reached out to us, and they now are employees of ours, as well as a few other guys previous before that. So I think it's really important to look for people that are not only invested financially. So if somebody's going and taking these courses, it shows that they're committed to, maybe not making a lifelong career out of it, but they're definitely focused on trying to get into the trade. And that also shows with the fact that they're committed with their time. So my program was a 2-year course. So it shows you that it shows us as employers that these people want to be carpenters or want to be, whatever trade that they are taking. I think a lot of people, unfortunately, put up ads, whether it's on Facebook or on different job postings, and then unfortunately they kind of just get whoever sees it and says, "Oh, I could do that. I can be a laborer," and they're just looking at it from a part-time or a summer job perspective, and that's unfortunately where I think a lot of people see turnover.
Yeah, I think maybe just while you're talking, I'm sort of thinking to myself, even though they're an apprentice or, in the early stages, maybe just begun, I think the attitude that you have to adopt, and I would look at the way I approached it, some time ago as an apprentice, it wasn't like this. And I think maybe that mindset around, I'm going to be a professional apprentice carpenter or a professional apprentice, like starting to get that mind, because I know that I've dropped the term truck and ladder guy, which is kind of the attitude towards the industry. It's like, well, I'm just going to make a paycheck and I'm not really interested in building a business. It just lacks professionalism. The approach is very, laissez-faire, laxy-daisy, that sort of thing. And so, I think where you're going really right, I think, is you're really looking grassroots and trying to find the guys and gals that really have an attitude towards learning and developing this, not just as a job, but as actually a career. And so, yeah, look, I like that. I think a lot of the times we want this instantaneous as business owners. We're like, okay, I've got a project, I need a guy. And it really it puts a lot of pressure on the business owner, the cash flow, and also the individual coming in. Whereas, learning or growing up, I mean, I did an apprenticeship with one builder, And, I end up working around that ecosystem for quite some time, even after I'd finished my apprenticeship. So, yeah, look, I do sort of subscribe to, homegrown. I think it has its pros and cons and its challenges, but I don't know that, I don't know, with everything that's changed in recent times, maybe there's going to be a bit of a pushback to hands-on trades. But I've not visited the local college here, and you're sort of inspiring me to go and have a chat with those and go, hey, we are, a building company and we're always looking for good humans. I would love to get involved and get into that ecosystem, because it sounds like what you're doing is a really strong, solid, albeit, a lengthy process to develop in good homegrown talent. So, yeah, I think for our viewers, that's definitely a good option, is to go and investigate what it is, that they can do to both short-term grow their business as far as their human resource, but also think about long-term. But then to the guys and gals that might be listening to us on live or this podcast or YouTube video, it's like, if you're an apprentice, think about having a professional attitude when you're talking to these building companies like, niche design consultants, and saying, well, there's a company who has a really high expectations on themselves. They're probably going to be looking for people coming through to adopt that same sort of attitude. So, yeah, look, I think it's great to talk about that, Dan, instead of going, well, how do you write an Indeed ad, which I get is important, but I think, to your point, it's a really good, productive way to get somebody who's actually got their head switched on and they're like, yep, I want to make this a career, not just a job. Mate, tell me, obviously you're the crew chief, you're not necessarily involved in sales. Tell me what you guys do, and I noticed you said that you're in-house architect, and just for the record, you guys are design and build, which is great. We totally subscribe to the same thing. What does a day in the life of a salesperson, at your company look like? Do you know anything about that? Or do you just go, no, not interested, just get me the jobs and I'll go build it? Do you get involved in round table discussions with them?
I oftentimes stay out of that conversation
Typical builder.
until there's something that's solid. So before we sign jobs, a lot of the time we'll sit down as a group and have a discussion and say, hey, is this a good fit for niche? Is this a good project for us? I'll be perfectly honest, I don't get to see every project application that comes through the door. That's not necessarily my specialty. However, if somebody wants a second opinion on whether or not I think that this is going to be either a profitable job, or B, one that suits our services, because sometimes you'll get people that come in and bring you a good, they've got a healthy budget. They're nice people and whatnot, but it might not just be a good fit for what your company can offer. So I honestly am not super involved in the day-to-day sales aspect of things. However, I do get kept up to date with kind of what are some of the potentials, or some of the the good looking potential jobs that are coming down the pipes. So I can't really touch a whole lot on the sales part of it, though, unfortunately.
And does most of your work come through word of mouth, or do you guys run a lot of social platform type ads, sponsored ads, or does it you basically got such a good reputation that it all comes down the line with very minimal digital sales or digital marketing?
So we do have a little bit of digital marketing taking place, but most of the sales that we generate, a lot of them are just word of mouth. I'm a firm believer in that. Obviously, you've got to have a reputation in order for that to work. But we do live in a small community. There are not a ton of builders. Like you said earlier, there's a lot of, handymen, or, people that aren't really going at it full time or focused on creating a company that's a true builder. So, a lot of people have spoke with other builders in the area and understand, that whoever is good is going to have a lot of jobs on their plates. So since we've seen a large, we've had a lot of people move here since 2019, 2020, and that in tune has brought a lot of people that have moved here from big cities that have money to build homes. And unfortunately, some of the builders that they speak to aren't able to get to their jobs in the timeline that they're hoping. So they just ask around, and a lot of our sales are driven just by word of mouth. And I think that that's a good way to get it. If you're talking with people that you've done work for in the past, generally speaking, it kind of puts you in the right category with other potential clients. So
Yeah, it's a lot around reputation. I mean, that's so important. And we work hard. I mean, if you go to our website, we spend a lot of money and time, and we get a lot of assistance from our past clients as it relates to sharing their experience, which is super helpful. So yeah, we probably have, because we've got multiple areas, we have to build this corporate reputation. But no doubt, when everybody comes into us and says, "Hey, I got given your number by such and such," immediately you just feel comfortable that that reputation has foregone you, and now you can just sort of get on with it without too much drama. So tell me, on the other side, because you didn't actually mention, I don't think, who does, because this is where I think you may be involved. I don't know who does all of your estimating. Like when you're putting together a $500,000 job in the estimate phase, pre-sales, or pre-contract, is that, do you get involved in the estimating side of it, and or how does it work at Niche?
So that would fall under the design and drafters, I guess, area of expertise. So when he does up his design or draft, he's quite involved in the estimating himself. He's very aware of kind of what's going to be needed for said project. He's got great relationships with all of our local suppliers and stuff like that. So that falls on his plate. From time to time, I will get asked to just check things over, make sure there's nothing that's being missed or what have you. But I'm not super involved in the basically anything that's pre-construction. My focus is basically as soon as the foundation is in the ground, that's when my role is really comes forth. So that's a lot of the time. I will meet clients once we have a signed contract, but I don't usually get too involved kind of in anything pre that. So basically, I'm just letting the other guys do their thing and trusting, because I know their skills and their strong suits. So it's really been it's been a great experience. Like when I was before I started working for Niche, I wanted to start my own company. I do it all myself. I was young and ambitious, and maybe a little unrealistic. But now, after I've been with Niche for almost 4 years now, and seeing kind of the process and seeing everybody's roles and responsibilities, it really amazes me to see that people still try to do this kind of on their own. They do all the estimating, whether they're doing drafting services as well, estimating, meeting with clients, trying to place orders, doing the construction themselves, doing the billing, doing all the payroll and stuff like that. There's just so much that goes into running a smooth operating business, and I just see the value in having a well-rounded team that has everybody that has specific not only tasks but skill set, because that's some of the stuff that I would struggle with personally, and I believe that I would kind of pick up where others struggle as far as practical building skills and stuff like that. So it's been great to have other partners to help share the weight and share the load, and lean on each other and support each other. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I did a podcast quite a while ago, which talked about you can either have all of a grape or, in your case, quarter of a watermelon. and I have three business partners as well. And I absolutely subscribe to the power of team, that no one of us can be as smart as all of us. And I understand, like you said, you're ambitious and everything like that. And I can understand people wanting to go it alone, so to speak. But I think the camaraderie which you would have, in and amongst the team at Niche, as well as the mental space where, like you've just made it very clear, that you have very little to do pre-contract, and it's only until the thing is out of the ground, and you literally can do your job at the highest level because you're not being distracted and pulled in all these other directions. Now, sure, it does impact on the paycheck, of course, but I think when we're talking about longevity, and it really helps when you're doing something that you love, and I believe you do that, you are doing something that you love. It really does. I like what I hear, because I feel like I'm at peace when I listen to your story, because I go, you don't look stressed to me, and I think there's too many people out there that are just running from pillar to post and trying to do everything for everybody and be everything for everybody. And it's just, maybe it can be done for a short amount of time, but ultimately there's a thing called fatigue, and then that leads to burnout. And of course, potentially the business can collapse. And so, we're trying to sort of do that from a franchise standpoint. We're trying to create the same feeling of team, that we do take on a lot of systemization. But yeah, down deep in the business, there's a lot of guys that are still running one-man bands, and it's interesting. It's almost like, now I don't want to sell a franchise unless you've got a business partner, because one person has so much to think about. So tell me about, just on that, tell me about what you guys do outside of business. I mean, do you guys get together, and you alluded to the fact that you went through college or building college or whatever with a buddy. How do you guys operate as business partners, both inside the walls of the business and outside? Is there, what do you guys do for fun, both with your crew on site, also with the other business partners? What do you do to develop good culture in your business, Dan?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think first and foremost, you have to understand to separate business from personal. So, whether we're at a meeting with the four business partners and having a chat about something that's serious, you have to understand that you have to put, personal feelings aside, and just be straightforward and honest, and look at it from a business perspective. But we all get along very well. We're all good friends. I actually didn't know any of the guys before I was a part of Niche, aside from the guy that I met at school. But they're all around the same age. Actually, two of them are brother-in-laws, and then the other partner is friends with both of them. So they're between 10 and 15 years older than myself. So at first I was definitely a little bit nervous, just with the age gap. But it's been really great to see them all treat me as an equal and not look at me any differently based on the fact that I'm just younger. I think that they can appreciate kind of the skill set that I bring to the table, and my knowledge and experience in construction. But talking outside of what we do, outside of work, like I said, we're all good friends. We all actually play golf together. So we try to do that, whether it's every week or every couple of weeks. And then two of the other guys, they like to play squash as well, which I've recently taken up in the summertime. So it's been fun. Yeah, we do that twice a week as well. So it's really important for us to try to focus on the good relationship that we all have with each other, when it really comes down to it, because sometimes it can be difficult when you're dealing with people that you care about in a business format. So it can be challenging to not take things personally, and stuff like that. But as far as a crew goes, we actually just had our Christmas party last weekend. And we all went out and played virtual golf at our local golf course. So they have two golf simulators there. We had all food and drinks there and stuff like that. So we're gonna try and get together all as a crew more often. Not really have any sort of specific need to do it other than the fact we can just all get together. So whether it's going out for, pizza or wings or something like that, or, maybe go bowling or something, just get everybody together. Because some of the guys don't get to see the office crew, or if you're working on separate crews on site, it can be easy to not see people for a couple of weeks, and just keeping everybody together and kind of uniform as a team is important. I think that I can speak for everybody that I want everyone that's a part of Niche's team to feel included and to feel valued, whether it's a business partner or an employee, because that's something that I really strive for, is focusing on making sure that we are checking off our employees' needs, kind of the same way that they do that for us, right? So I think it's definitely important to keep a good relationship with everybody on your team, and that's something that we really focus on at Niche.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good way to develop that culture, and obviously, you guys are pretty golf heavy. I think the golf spoils a good walk, but I know that when I go back to Oz, we'll definitely get there's always a group. There's a reason we're sort of together, but they'll play a thing called 4-ball best ball. I don't know what they call it here. Where you'll get 4 guys. What do you call that?
We call it a best ball scramble. So yeah.
Yeah. So that suits my golf game to a T, where my golf swing doesn't really have any impact on the game, but I'm okay to drive around and maybe knock the froth off of a couple, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, it's all about having, enjoying the ride is half the battle. And I think, the fact that this is a business for builders oriented show, we got to focus on the company culture. But the speed of the leader determines speed of the pack, Dan. And so, it sounds like the leadership in that business that you're a part of really does understand the importance of attracting and training and retaining really, good talent. And so, I guess that comes down to probably the thing we'll wrap up with, Dan, is whether you're a brand new apprentice carpenter, or whether you're a lead carpenter or a business partner. Tell me what's your views on what the mindset of a successful operator in the building industry is. When I say to you, how important is mindset, mate? Share your thoughts. What are you thinking?
Yeah, that's another great question. I think that mindset is probably one of the most important things. Maybe with anything that you do, not just focusing on construction or carpentry. I think that that's one of the only things that you can't teach somebody. So going back to the guys and gals that we get from school, some people might hear that and say, "Oh, well, they're brand new, they're green. I don't really want to spend the time to train these people." And I understand that. A lot of the time, the people that are in school or coming out of school are very fresh and new to the trade. However, I think that that's also can be a good thing, meaning that they don't have bad habits, maybe from previous employers. You can really shape and mold people and teach, the people how you want them to not only work but think as well. So that's a huge thing for us, is looking for somebody with a good attitude and a good mindset. It really is. I would say, for me personally, I think it's the biggest thing that somebody can bring to the table. You can teach people how to be a carpenter, but you can't teach people how to have a good work ethic or a good mindset. And like my old employer said, he said, "I've never had a problem I couldn't fix. Sometimes it takes a week, sometimes it takes 2. But you can always fix issues or mistakes." And I think having that positive mindset is extremely important. Like I said, not only in the construction industry, but in any job that anybody has. So yeah, I think that.
Yeah, I agree. I just think it's, I think, like you say, you teach them the physical skills, but, I think the ultimate goal perhaps is for this first year apprentice, brand new, green, just started, is to own and operate their own general contracting or carpentry business. And so, I think if you start, it's like I talk about, in training and sometimes on a podcast, we've got to develop techniques first, and then the speed will come. I think too many of us want to go out and run hot laps straight out the gate instead of actually working on maybe the mental logistical infrastructure, and so that you can go the distance, because it doesn't. Last time I checked, Rome wasn't built in a day. So it's that positive mindset. I would probably kill to work as an apprentice under you, Dan, because that sounds exactly like the type of place that you're really going to get good outcomes. And I guess you do what you can, but ultimately it is in the hands of these young'uns as they come through. And it's interesting, a lot of that influence, and I think you've got a great crew, and if that's the culture, you become like the people you hang around. And so, I think as a really good investment, these young people coming into your business, the best thing they could do is just kind of ride the wave. Sometimes, it's not going to be great. There is going to be days where you hate stripping forms, or you hate dragging trusses around in the rain, or whatever you're doing. But at the end of the day, I think you've got to look at the long-term view. And that's part of that mindset, is going, okay, today maybe wasn't that enjoyable, but it certainly will be worth it down the track. So, look, Dano, I don't know, you got any closing thoughts? We're talking to, obviously, building company owners. Is there any closing thoughts that you want to leave us with as we wrap up, mate?
Don't put me on the spot like that.
No, that's all right. Well, look, man, it's really been cool having you on the show. We've definitely, talked about doing this as a bit of a retail facing, because right now, obviously, my audience is mostly general contractors or those in the trade, wanting to come through. And so, look, I think at some point we'll probably go around again. It is essentially the last show for the year. We've already done. We're working on a bit of a final. What do we call it? A hash? No, what do we call it? A mashup. So that's going to be a good one. That'll be the last episode. But it's been really good having you on the show, man. And we'll look forward to. Don't forget, check out Dan at It's Dan Booth across the board on all of your socials. He's a ninja on TikTok, and I'm gonna follow him a lot more now. I'm gonna learn how to build construction in Canada. So good on you, Dan. Thanks for having you on. Thanks for coming on the show and chatting with us real quick, and we look forward to doing it again real soon.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Max. I really appreciate the opportunity, and to the whole team that's with you as well. Hopefully we can get to do this again soon.
Beautiful. All right, go build a kick-ass business, and I'll see you on the next episode. Cheers.